Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Assalamualaikum. Selamat petang. A very warm welcome to everyone who joined us today. So this is our exclusive webinar by behaviour, and we would like to welcome every one of you, to be part of this program, right? So the topic of today's webinar is the effective rodent management in urban areas. So we have two speakers for today's session, and we hope that you guys enjoy the session. I think it's not too late for me to say selamat berpuasa to all Muslims for participants that attend today. And I think also we are approaching Raya soon, I think in 1 week time. So I cannot say Happy Raya too soon, I guess, but we will be quite excited, I think, this year, because after so many I would say 2 years, we have a lot of restriction, but now I think we have more freedom. But all in all, I would say still be on your, stay safe and take care of your health and also your family. All right. So I'll move to the next slide. Right. So for today's session, we will start actually in 3 o'clock, right? And we hope that we can finish before 5 o'clock, right? And all the attendees audio is muted, and we strongly encourage all the participants to put your question in the question box, right? And also to ensure you mention the speaker's name that you want to ask to, right? There will be a polls that we will run. There will be about a total number of 5 polls that we will run, okay, after this, and there will be one short survey after this webinar ends, after you close this so-called apps, right? And we also attach 2 handout, our brochure, Racumin wax block brochure, and also Racumin tracking powder, right? So without further ado, we will go through the agenda for today. So we will start with some welcome notes by our new business manager, Stanley. And after that, I will run 3 polls, right? And we'll continue with the sharing session by the speaker. And only after the sharing session, we will go for the Q&A session. So I don't want to waste any minutes now, because Dr. Hasber's slide is very interesting. Would like him to share. But before that, let me call Stanley to give some short introduction. Stanley is our business manager for environmental science, Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei. So Stanley, the floor is yours.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stanley, the business manager for Malaysia, Brunei, and Singapore. It's a pleasure to be here today and to welcome each and every one of you to the webinar today. Right. I'm very grateful and honored to have Dr. Hasber today, who will be sharing with us later his experience and also knowledge. And also for Mr. Mark as well, we'll also be sharing on the behaviour solutions for the urban management for rodents. Then, of course, I would also like to thank you to Miss Myra, our marketing from the regional team in Singapore that is making all this happen with us. Then thank you, Mr. Haziq, for leading this webinar for today, and not forgetting Mr. Zamri as well, that is supporting us from the back end and so on. So first of all, thank you very much. As I would like to also echo what Mr. Haziq said, which is selamat berpuasa to all our Muslim participants here today. This is a Bulan Ramadan, and we're looking forward for our Raya celebration, which is going to be happening soon by next month. Right. So without further ado, thank you once again. Thank you for being here, spending time with us, and I look forward. I hope that you have a wonderful gain a lot from this webinar and have a fruitful webinar. Thank you. So I pass the floor back to Mr. Haziq. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Stanley, for your lovely introduction. All right, so before I share the speaker so-called biodata or speaker profile, I want to launch a few polls. I think only 3. I hope you guys can participate. It's a very quick one. I will launch the first poll first. So just for us to to understand better who is our audience today lah. So we'll launch the first poll. I'll give about 15-20 seconds for you to answer lah, right? So yep, the first poll is showing now. So we just want to which is the current your current role in your job that fits you, who is attending our session today lah. So so we hope that we can see what's the percentage of of the role that joining our webinar today. All right, so there is about 40% voted. So I just give some time, 50%. All right, okay, then it's still moving. I cannot close it, right? Okay, I give another 10 seconds lah. All right, 10 seconds. Just click the button, then you can vote. All right. So okay, so I close the polls now. All right. So let me share the answer. I mean, so everyone can see. Right. So most of the participant today is the from the technical background, I would say. Right. And number 2 is the sales and also the management. Right. Not many of these admin people. Right. Fully understand. All right. So the second point I want to hear from you guys is this one. Also give you about 1 minute lah, right? So just want to hear from which platform that you get the information about this event and then join this event lah. So in order for us to improve lah, for our future invitation, right? So at least we get a clearer picture of which platform should we focus lah. All right. So about 20% people have voted. I give around 1 minute lah for people to vote. Right. Take your time, choose wisely. Okay. There's no right or wrong. We just want to to see what is the most effective platform for us to to hands this out lah. Okay. So I'll close this poll in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. All right. So let me share the the result. As you can see, a lot of people get from WhatsApp, so quite interesting. After that, following with email and Facebook. All right. So sorry, last poll before I introduce the speaker. Hope you guys can bear with me. So sorry. Okay. So the last poll, I just want to to hear from you guys. What is your level of understanding about rats? Do you know all everything about it, or this is your first time? This is your, or but sometimes you forget about it, or you handle it every day. Just want to see your level of understanding. Okay. So just give me around 1 minute or so. No worries. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. We just want to hear from you guys. What is your level of understanding? For us to understand better, in terms of what is our audience expectation, I would say. Okay, so I'll give another 10 seconds, right? So, yep, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then I close. All right. So, right. So most of you say you learn about it, but maybe, forget or remember a thing or two, but and number two is you handle it every day. So not much I expert, I guess. Yeah, for today. So no worries. For today is we want to to explore and learn about our rodent, especially uh, for the rodent control, right? So I'll move to the next slide. I will introduce our first speaker, right? So our first speaker is, I think, quite well known in the pest control committee and also public health. He's from USM. Name is Dr. Hasber Salim. So Dr. Hasber is the senior lecturer in USM. So prior joining the academia, also is a senior plant protectionist in FGV, right? So currently he heads the heading the rodent pest laboratory lah, right? For the efficiency test, secondary poisoning assessment towards the non-target organism. He also is one of the founding member and the current coordinator for the Banao and Rodent Research Group, BORG USM, right? I think there's I think Facebook as well. Maybe Dr. Asber can share later. So Dr. Asber has been working in biological control for agricultural pests for more than 20 years. So we are grateful to have Dr. Hasber today. So Dr. Hasber, I'll give you the presenter for you to present your parts, right? Dr. Hasber, the floor is yours. Okay, you can see your screen now.
Hello, Haziq. Can you hear me?
Can.
Okay. Let me go to my slide. Open. Okay, Haziq, can you see the rat eating the Racumin?
Yes, very cute, very cute rats.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, Haziq. Hello, everyone. Haziq, thank you very much for the lovely introduction just now. And thank you to Bay Environmental Science for inviting me for today's event. I think this is our second webinar, yeah, Haziq?
Yes.
Yes, our second webinar. If I'm not mistaken, our first webinar in 2020, we also talk about rodent, right? We talk about rodent, but if I'm not mistaken, the title is Sustainable Management of Rodent in Oil Palm Plantation. And today we also talk about rodent again, but in a different landscape. Yeah.
Yes.
So again, rodent and rodent. Why rodent? Because they are so important. Not just make a losses, to our cultivation or in our palm plantation, specifically in Malaysia, also create a lot of problems in urban area. Because in urban area, they live with us, they cause a lot of problem, not just losses to our food or contaminate our food, but also they cause a lot of problem by, they bring disease to us. So meaning that they have become a vector to a lot of disease to us. So it is a public health concern, yeah? So, Haziq?
Yes, Doctor.
So basically today, we're gonna talk about this title, the rodent management strategy in urban area. So I'll try to make the presentation as simple as possible because I don't want to make the session become like a lecture in university. So we'll try to divide into 3 sections. Yeah, the first one, we will talk about rodent biology. Yeah, the rodent biology because we want to know who is our enemy. Yeah, we want to know because we want to win the war. Yeah, we have to know about our enemy. So later I will talk about behavior and capabilities of this animal. So why they are so successful, why they are so important, not just in our plantation, not just in our rice field, but also in our residential area. And the last one, I think this is the most crucial, yeah, Haziq, because I'm going to talk about inspection and management. Because for sure, when we have our enemy, and then they cause a lot of problem to us, we have to control them, yeah. But not the. I think the right terminology is not to control because we cannot eliminate the populations of rat in our environment. because this is something that impossible. The problem basically happened since the early civilizations of humans. So until now, I think the right terminology is to manage them, how to manage the populations of rat in our environment. Yeah.
True.
So, but a lot of people will ask me, what is rodent? When I, go to any webinar, also, a physical seminar, people, the first question of the audience, they will ask about rodent. What actually a rodent? Because we have to know about this animal, why they are so special. Even we have to spend our time today after Jumat, yeah? This is a very critical time, Haziq, especially during fasting, month. But why they are so special? That's the first question. Why so special? Even Mark, one of the experts from behaviour, will talk later about this animal, how to control them with using a technology from behaviour. So this is an animal, basically a largest group of mammal, and they consist of a lot of families of animals. For example, rats, mice, and squirrel. And in Malaysia alone, we have about 55 species recorded in Semenanjung or Peninsular Malaysia. And of course, in my birdland, in Sabah and Sarawak, or specifically in Borneo Island, we got 62 species. So meaning that we have a more diverse species than Peninsular Malaysia. And the special about this animal, they have a open root dentation. So meaning that the teeth, especially the incisor teeth, will keep growing. Yeah, keep growing. Haziq. So meaning that this animal, they have to shorten their teeth, or they have to wear down their teeth, the incisor teeth. That's very important for them if they want to eat. So if they're not wear down their teeth, they won't survive. Yeah, they won't survive because the fat keep growing, especially the incisor teeth. So another problem with this animal, because when the teeth keep growing, when they have to wear down, they have to bite on something, on something, keep biting on something. So especially in urban area, they will bite, of course, our furniture, a structure, or anything that they found in the nest or in the environment. The environment, basically our environment, because they live with us. Now we are not talking about rodent in plantation, but now rodent that stay with us. And another problem with this animal, they are very highly adaptable. They are very successful, regardless of type of environment. Either the environment is a natural environment, or it's a modified environment, like in plantation as well as in a residential area. And another problem, Mark, there's a lot of problem. Yeah, Mark, are you there?
Mark
a lot of
muted.
problem.
Yes.
Yeah, muted. Yeah.
Yes,
So
Dr.
there's a lot of problem.
Yep.
They can adapt very well to our environment. They can reproduce very fast, and this reproduction, very fast, make them they can present in a big number in a very short time. So meaning that if you have one rat in your house, for example, they can multiply, to more than 1,000 or 1,500 per year, because of they can reproduce very fast. That we will discuss later in detail about the productions of this animal. So we have a lot of rats or rodent species in Malaysia, but remember, this is part of the ecosystem. When they stay in the forest, they are not pests, but they are very critical. They are one of the important elements for the ecosystem, because this is a food source for other animals, But when they become, when they stay with us and they compete with us, they become pests. As simple as that. Yeah. So in Malaysia, we only recorded about 10 species of rodent that become pests, both in agriculture as well as in residential area. But for today's event, we will talk about only rats that present in our urban area, which is the first three species: the Rattus rattus, also known as house rat, Mus musculus, this is house mouse, or in Bahasa we call them mencit, yeah. And the last one is Rattus norvegicus, or Norway rat. So this is the species. Why the species is so important? Because we'll discuss later about or the adaptations of different species, that we have to use that knowledge to deal with them later. Yeah. So when we deal with this animal in residential area or in urban area, this is the terms that usually we'll found that when somebody discussing about rats in urban area, a commensal rodent. Yeah, basically the urban rat, also known as a commensal rodent. So what is a commensal rodent? Meaning that the commensal means eating at the same table. So meaning that you share your food with your enemy. You share your space with your enemy. So that is the terms of the commensal rodent. And then this commensal rodent, they live with us. They live with us because of the three factors. The first one, because of the food, because we provide them of food. Then water, of course, they stay with us because of the water, as well as shelter. Because when they live with us, there's no chance of predator from the open environment to catch them. So basically, we protect them, we feed them, yeah, in our premise, yeah, or in our building. So, like I mentioned just now, we have three species of rats, roof rat, Norway rats, house mouse, and these three species are responsible for the great economic losses and also for creating public health problem in the world, yeah, not just in Malaysia. The three species basically is a cosmopolitan species, meaning that they're present everywhere. Maybe from the table we cannot see the difference between these species, but I'll show you this diagram. So from this diagram you can see this is a diagram that I took from this website because I just want to show how the tail, the long of the tail, the long of the tail compared to the body. So you can see the Norway rat. If you can see, the tail shorter than head of body. Yeah? So meaning that they have a shorter tail. If you compare with roof rat, this is a climber rat. They need a longer tail for the balancing. So this is the obvious difference between Norway and roof rat. We also have house mouse. House mouse is a very little rodent. It's so cute, basically, yeah? With the big eye and then small body, just about, I think, less than 50 grams. Yeah. We also can identify them according to their droppings. Yeah, Haziq, ni type dia pun kita boleh identify. Yes. So because they are nocturnal, yeah, they are nocturnal animals, so sometimes very difficult to find them during the daytime. So we can identify them to their droppings. So from the photo, you can see that the size the size of the dropping is also different according to the species. Norway rats, they can go up to about 2 cm the size, and they have a blunt on the end of the droppings. Yeah, see, so smooth. Yeah, this is a rat dropping from the Norway. Roof rat, yeah, the size a little bit smaller, but with the pointed end. So you can see the pointed end here. Yeah, and the mice, of course, house mouse dropping. This is a small. Of course, when they're small body, they will produce a small pellet. Yeah, but the size is not. It's almost double if you compare with the American cockroach droppings. Yeah, because in urban areas we have a lot of pests. One of the pests is American cockroach. So if you compare the American cockroach dropping with the house mouse dropping, it's almost double. Yeah, or triples. Yeah, sorry, almost triples. Yeah. The behavior also almost same, basically, regardless of the species. In terms of the social behavior, these animals, they are highly social animals. So meaning that they will live in colonies. This is the problem when they live in colonies, when they have a very high reproduction and they fit together. So it's very difficult for us to control, basically, because of this behavior. And they also have what we call a physical capabilities, like roof rat, because this is an indoor rat, a roof rat. They're very good in climbing. They are agile climber. And Norway rats, this is a species that we can consider as an outdoor rat, meaning that they stay out of the building. But there's a report from my friends, a TCO friends, that they say some Norway now they enter a building. So it's something like very interesting, yeah, because they want to survive, yeah. And food preference almost similar basically, yeah. But Norway rats, because they stay outside, so they're more to what we call a protein base, yeah. And nestling, yeah, Norway rats, they live in burrow. Roof rat, of course, from the name, house rat, roof rat, yeah, they stay in the premise or in the building, yeah. Physical capabilities, why they are so successful, yeah. For example, Norway rats, yeah, they are very excellent in swimming. They can swim. Roof rat, they're agile climber. They can jump up to 4 feet across, or 3 feet up. So this is a very, very interesting, because it's just a small animal, but they have a very good capabilities when we talk about their survival in our environment. And they can know, because of the incisors that we discussed previously, that keep growing, and that is very, very strong. Yeah, strong if you compare with, you know, even in solid structure like iron, they can know, meaning that they can bite and slowly and make their access to the building. And even some of the like Norway rats, they can grow up to 500 grams. But as long as the skull they can go through, I mean, meaning that if they want to access to the building, they want to go into the building, if this hole, you know, as small as 1 centimeter gap, as long as the skull can go through, the body will go through. Yeah, that's special about this rodent. Okay, now we move to the rat sense. Why rat sense so important? Yeah? Because the survival of rodent in our environment basically is dependent on these particular things, yeah, rat sense. Because they have very poor in vision, they are not like us, yeah. We are very good in sight, but rodent they have very poor in vision, yeah. Poor in vision meaning that they just poor in vision, but not to other sense, yeah. Because they basically, oh my god, I think I ran out of battery on my computer. Huh? Rat, they depends on the smell, taste, hearing, and touch sense. So even in a total darkness, when they cannot see anything, yeah, they can know their route. They can find their food. They can find their spouse. They can go to their harborage. They can go to their nest. So basically, this is not about the light. This is about their sense of touch, hearing, and smell. Yeah. And this is another problem before I proceed to the next discussion. Yeah, because we have another 2 sections. Yeah, I think that is the most important, because the first section basically is just about biology of this animal or this pest. Another important, when we discuss about rodent, we have to know this animal, they are so special because they have neophobia. Why neophobia is so important to us? Because neophobia is something that this animal, they are very cautious. They are very cautious. So meaning that when you introduce something, a new thing, a new food, or a new object, for example, a trap, in their environment or near to the foraging area, they will extremely cautious or extremely fear. Okay, so they will avoid that new things. Yeah, but let's say if you want to put a new bait, yeah, for sure in the 2 days, basically in the 2 days or 3 days, this is the period. Yeah, yeah, Haziq, are you still with me?
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah? Or
yes.
Yeah, because my internet connection is not really good today. Yeah? So they were very cautious to a new bait. So when you put a new bait, yeah, so you have to, how to say, you have to apply them in more than few days maybe, yeah, to make sure they are more comfortable with the bait, yeah, because especially when you use a rodenticide, anticockroach rodenticide that we'll discuss detail, I think, by Mark later. when you put an anticoagulant rodent inside, they will have a delay effect. So meaning that the animal, they will go and eat and they will not die immediately. So this is a very important to make sure this sophisticated animal, this smart animal, they won't learn because they are very smart. They will learn very fast. So to make sure our applications of red bait as effective as possible, we have to apply in a few days and make sure you use anticoagulant rodenticide with delay effect, so to make sure the animal will know which food that poisonous to them. Yeah. See how interesting about the no phobia, Haziq? So no phobia, we have to, we have to understand the behavior of this animal to make sure our control as effective as possible. Haziq, now I move to reproduction. Yeah, as I mentioned in the first slide, reproduction. This animal, I tell you, Haziq, this is like a breeding machine. Yeah, like a breeding machine. They can reproduce very fast. Yeah. In 1 year, basically, yeah, they can. If you have one female, of course, they need their husband, yeah. So two male and female, yeah? They can produce up to 15,000, not 1,500, 15,000 descendants or offspring, yeah, in a year. So we have to control them as early as possible when you have evidence of one rat in your area or in your compound. You have to control them immediately, yeah? Because in a very short time they will produce very fast. I will show you about the calculation how to get the 15,000 of rats, because you just imagine one rat, yeah, one single female able to produce about 6 to 12 young, yeah, per batch, and they can produce about 8 batches or 8 liters per year. So very productive, yeah. 1 year produce 8 batches of what you call babies. So in each batch, they can produce up to 12 babies. So from that, we can roughly, calculate about one single female, yeah, they can produce about 96 offspring just from one single female. But remember, yeah, the maturity of the reproductive of the female rats, it just takes about 3 months. So meaning that the first batch, the second batch, and the third batch, yeah, after 3 months, they will become another versions of our first female. So if you calculate from the 8 liters per year with the 12 offspring, with the maturity, they can reach maturity at 3 months, very short 3 months, they can produce about 15,000 rats per year. So we have to control them, Haziq, because if you're not control them, you will have a big problem in your premise. Yeah.
True.
Haziq, this is a survey that did by a city council of Kuala Lumpur. I think this is all data, but yeah, I believe the amount or the numbers of the rats now maybe double, or I don't know. But let's if you look into the figures that revealed by the city council of Kuala Lumpur, they try to estimate the numbers of rats in Kuala Lumpur. We have a 6.8 million rats in Kuala Lumpur alone. So this is basically the numbers is almost 4 times if you compare with the human population in Kuala Lumpur. So there's a millions of rats in our environment basically. Yeah. So now we move to the problems. When they reproduce very fast, yeah, when they compete with us, when they produce a lot of droppings. Yeah? For your information, they can produce up to Norway rats, they can produce up to 50 droppings per day. 50 tayo, 50 kali dia berak, Haziq. Well, they're so active, yeah. They can produce 50 droppings, and they can excrete about 4 ml urine. Yeah, 4 ml urine. So it's a lot of this dropping for sure. We know droppings and urine, they can contaminate our food. And of course, from direct consumption, they eat our food. They contaminate our food via dropping and urine. And from the gnawing activities, because they have to wear down their teeth, yeah, so they will bite on hard surface in our maybe in our premise on in our office. So perhaps maybe it's a wire, it's electrical wire, or it is a internet wire, or anything that they can buy just to wear down their teeth. So they are, beside that, they also, some of people, they are really, how to say, they're really scared, they really fear about this rodent, not just because of their mosophobiia. This is the term when you acute fear to rodent. They just feel, how to say, when people talk about rats, the rat is something that gross and filthy. Yeah. So, but the most important here is when they're present in our residential area, they can be a vector to a lot of diseases. Yeah, a fatal disease. Yeah. For example, I think you're familiar with leptospirosis as well as bubonic plague. This is the disease that commonly transfer or infect to Earth by the presence of rodent in our environment. Yeah. Now we move to the economical and public health importance. Yeah. Many people thought that rats is just eat a garbage. Yeah. No, basically, yeah. They prefer they eat anything that we do, and like us, they prefer fresh food. Yeah. They prefer fresh food, and the losses is not from direct consumption, but through the contaminations by dropping in urine and hair. Like I mentioned just now, one Norway rat, they can produce up to 50 droppings, and they can excrete about 4 liters or 4 ml of urine. So they can contaminate as double as from the consumption or the direct consumption. And the most important, as I mentioned just now, they can carry over 20 diseases that transmissible to us, yeah, to human, from animal to human. Yeah. Yes, for example, this is the disease. For example, leptospirosis, even the food poisoning like caused by the salmonellosis. Yeah. And this animal, besides the contamination through the droppings and the urine, yeah, they can eat. Yeah, they can eat very, very huge. Yeah? You just imagine they can eat about 10% of their body weight. For example, Norway rats, the body, let's say 250 grams. Yeah, they can eat 25 grams food per day. So this requirement of food by Norway, if you convert it, yeah, if you have 25 Norway rats, yeah, it's equal to one human food consumption. So basically, the losses because of rat activities in our premise is very, very high. And also contamination, as I mentioned just now, they can contaminate twice as much as they consume. So very, very important. Okay, I hope you're still with me, and I hope the session is not a very boring session, because for the past 30 minutes, I talked just about the biology. Of course, some of you, maybe you are expert in the biology of the rats, but it's just a quick revision to make sure we know about our enemy. Now we move to, of course, we have to manage them. When they become your pest, they compete with you, and they bring disease to you, you have to control them, because automatically they are our enemy, right? So we have to control them. But it's not like other pests, yeah? It's not like other pests, meaning that maybe an insect pest, because they're just an insect. But this animal, we deal with rodent, is very complicated. Why they're so complicated? Because we deal with something that are very smart. They are very intelligent animals. So when you deal with them, we have to put this point that we deal with something that really, really smart. And beside that, when you deal with something very intelligent, we know that the control program or management program is not a permanent control. It's just a temporary control. When they're very smart, when they can reproduce very fast, all the control program is just a temporary control. Yeah. So meaning that we need a sustainable control. So meaning that your effort to control them or to manage the population must be in a sustainable, or meaning that continuous management program. And because of the reproduction, higher reproductions, because they are so smart, there's no single method of control effective to solve their problem. Not their problem, our problem, because they cause problem to us. Yeah, there's no single method, even a chemical control, because chemical control also, they can kill the rodent, they can kill your enemy, but remember, when they're intelligent animal, they can learn very fast, they can develop bad shyness, meaning that they know your bed is poisonous, they can develop threat shyness, meaning that the threat is dangerous to them, they can develop resistance, yeah, they can develop resistance. So that's why there's no single method alone effective to control them. So meaning that you have to integrate your control to make sure the control program that you create to control this animal as effective as possible. And remember when you deal with this animal, you have to know that why this animal to come to stay with us, why they come to us, yeah, why they're not just stay in the forest, why they're not just stay in the plantation, because it's thousands of bunches of oil palm plantation or oil palm fruit in the plantation. Why they come to our residential areas? Why they have to risk their life? Because they have to deal with very sophisticated creatures, which is Homo sapien, Earth, human. So because they come for the food, for the water, and for the shelter, that is the most important, the shelter, because we protect them from their enemy. This animal also, they have a lot of enemies. Yeah, trust me. If you learn about the biology, I think we won't finish the syllabus. Yeah, Haziq.
Yes, not enough time.
Yeah, I hope I'm still on the track. Yeah.
Yes, still on the track.
when we discuss about the control, yeah, we have to talk about the sustainable rat management. Yeah, we have to talk about the sustainable, something that continuous program. Yeah, and this sustainable rat management, we need to put these three elements: the prevention, the inspection and monitoring, and population control. Prevention. Why we need to prevent? Because, well, preventive is better than cure. And inspection and monitoring. Why? Because we want to know how big, how serious the infestation. Then we can deliver our resources to deal with them. Like you want to go to war, yeah. So you need to calculate how many tanks that you need, how many, machine, you want to bring to the war. So inspection and monitoring basically to make sure you know what is the strength of your enemy. And of course, when you have outbreak, yeah, when the problem happen, you have to control your population to make sure the problem is not getting worse. Yeah. Prevention, better than cure. You have to prevent by what? Yeah, this is the component. You want to prevent them to come into your area, you have to practice a good sanitation. As simple as that. And you can also do a rodent proofing, because the animal, if they have access, yeah. Let's say if you want to protect the indoor area, so you have to make sure there's no access of this animal from the outside or from the other building to come into your building. So as simple as that, the proper sanitation, the rodent proofing is the preventive action that you have to take as the first step if you want to control rodent population in your area. Yeah. Rodent proofing, as I mentioned just now, as small as 1 centimeter, you have to seal them to make sure these rats, they cannot come into the building. Yeah. Inspection. Why we have to inspect them? This nocturnal animal is not easy to inspect them, the populations, but you can do a routine inspection through the signs of the presence in your area. We have these all 10 parameters. So these 10 parameters you can use to determine the presence and how big the population in the area. For example, as I mentioned just now, the droppings, yeah, the droppings. From the droppings, basically we know the presence of the rat in the building or in the premise, and also we can know what species that present, because different species, they have a different behavior. So we have a different strategy to control them. And then you also, from the dropping, you know how big the population, because we know one single, for example, roof rat, they can produce about 20 to 50 droppings per day. So from the amount of dropping from your inspection, you know how big the population. And there's another, 9 parameters that You can assess them. So from that parameters, you can see how serious the problem and what species that happen in your area. Sensors, very, very important. This is not just to make sure your control as effective as possible, but also like PCO, because PCO, you have to, of course, you have to prepare a report to your clients, right? So this is inspection, basically, is part of the regular report for the monitoring program that you can use to report to your clients. And this inspection, or this is a rodent sensors, you can use a lot of techniques. Yeah? For example, you put if you want to determine the numbers of the rats, you can put some food, and then you can determine that food consumed. If the food consumed, or if the bait consumed, meaning that there's a presence of rat in your area, and from the food consumption, you can calculate, roughly, not in detail, but roughly the population. Then you can estimate the population, not the numbers of the population, but just the level of the infestation. Is it a minor infestation? Is it a moderate infestation? Is it a very serious infestation that you have to control them immediately? Yeah. Well, to do a rat survey is a very easy. Yeah, it's like do a banci. Yeah, Haziq ingat tak orang datang rumah banci kan? Dia ada satu kad tu kan?
Yes.
So basically,
Yes.
if you want to to banci or to do a rat survey, we can do like what banci buat. Yeah, it just for example, this is a what you call a rat survey form you can use. It's just a small card, both sides. The front side, maybe you can put the conditions of the premise, yeah, and previous history, because we want to know what actually happened in that place and why this animal present in the premise. And also, we want to know what type of previous control that used by the clients previously, because if, let's say, if there's a trapping, from the previous years, we will have a problem with trapping, because we know that the population, they already have some history about trap. So there's a probability that this animal, they already developed some trap shyness that will make our trapping program not effective. Yeah. And on the back side, you can put a rat evidence. Maybe you are very sure there's a rat in your area because of the presence of visitors, or because of the knowing mark, and entrance, harborage, food supply, why they come to the area. You have to determine that, yeah. And then outside condition, why? Because the outside condition also maybe become a what you call a breeding site, yeah. And they will come to your area to stay with you. So also you have to determine the damage to the structure, because of course you have to report to your client. So you have to justify the damage because of the animal, yeah. Well, some people, of course, we are in a digitalized era. Some people, they said, Dr. come on now. You do a survey with the kat banci, itu kan, Haziq? Dia kata it's
Yes.
old fashioned, yeah. So dia kata, hey doctor, are you sure? Dia kata we have to bring the kat banci. It's not really like sophisticated to our clients lah. This is some PCO lah. When I deal with a few friends from the industry, they said, "Wow, how about the digitalizations of rodent monitoring?" Yeah, there's an effort from a lot of companies, even Bayer also, yeah, Haziq. There's a effort to develop the digital rodent monitoring, and if I'm not mistaken, also Rentokil, they have their own what you call system that they help us to do a rodent monitoring by digital, or by what you call IoT, or Internet of Things. So this is a combination of sensor, software, motion camera, and other device that connected via internet connection here and transfer data, meaning that you integrate the IoT with all these device and integrate with this snap trap, bait station, camera surveillance, and motion detector, meaning that you snap trap equipped with the sensor. So meaning that when your what you call a field biologist, they don't need to go visit regularly, maybe every day, but they just stay in their office, but they can monitor. Is it the snap trap already success to snap or to kill rodent in that area? So it's very easy, but I don't know about the practice in our country. But in UK, I think, and also in US and some part of the Europe, this digital rodent monitoring, they're very successful. Yeah. This is one of the published paper. Yeah, Haziq, of course, I'm academia. We always refer to publish paper. So this is one of the published paper mentioned that how IoT or smart rodent rodent, the base station that integrate with the digital or the IoT, they can reduce a lot of dependence on the workers. Yeah? So meaning that we can reduce manual labor. So meaning that the program they can cover in a big area, especially when you deal with the maybe a warehouse in a big area. It's not easy to when you have a shortage of workers. With this type of technology, you can do a monitoring of the programs. Yeah. Inspection census monitoring is very important again. Yeah, we have to make sure you implement the inspection census and monitoring to make sure you control as effective as possible. Do it, before any control work is started. You have to inspect. Yeah, you have to inspect regardless it's by manual or by digital. You have to do the inspection and you have to make sure you deal with how serious the problem. Yeah, that is the key of the control. Okay, Haziq, now I move to the last one, I think. Yeah, I move to the last one,
No
the
problem.
last part. Yeah, not the last slide, Haziq.
Yes.
Not the last slide, but the last part of the. I know already 40 minutes. I think. Yeah, I have another. Perhaps you can extend my
Yes.
session. Yeah.
Boleh,
Okay.
no problem.
Boleh ya, terima kasih. So yeah, bulan puasa-puasa ni tunjuk pula red. Yeah. Wow, when we talk about rodent control, the most effective to control any animal, yeah, is a human predator. So, but the problem, rats in urban area, we consider this rodent is a dirty rodent. It's not like in a plantation or in a rice field, because in some part of area in Vietnam and also in the Luzon in northern side of Philippines, there's a tribe that they really enjoy with the red meat. Yeah? But there's their culture. But in Malaysia, you can ask a lot of people go in hunting rats and we can enjoy the meat. No one. So we have a problem when we don't have a human predator. For sure, we have a problem to control the population. So we need other methods. So what is the method? We can divide the method to non-chemical control and chemical control. Why I divide them? Because the chemical control, this is when we involve with the chemicals that toxic to our environment. Yeah. So non-chemical control, I think all of you know about the trap and glues. Yeah. You put more, of course, it's better. But remember, when you have population that previously, there's a trapping program that employ in that area, so you'll have problem with the trap shyness, because some of the populations of rat in our country, they develop this trap shyness. Because when let's say if the baby or if the ada anak dia, Haziq, dia nampak mak dia masuk trap, then mak dia kena bunuh. So they tahu, oh, that trap is dangerous for me. So they wouldn't go there. So see how brilliant this animal. So this is the disadvantage of traps and glue board. Yeah. And I think I will try to share with you. This is a video I want to show with you. This is I took this video from Pest Holding here, one of the pest control operator in Singapore. You can see how, Haziq, you can see this rodent. This is a roof rat. You can see the tail is longer than their body. Yeah. So this is a blue. This is a glue board. See the rats. They try to remove the glue board. Yeah, to make sure they can go into the building, because this pest control put the glue board in this entry to make sure they can trap the rats. But come on, they are very smart. See, they are very smart. Yeah. Okay, threat and live threat. You can see from the, some people they say very effective. Some people they say not effective. It's according to the population. That's why the history of the program in your area you have to take note. Yeah. Noise device. Some people say noise devices is good for the control, but trust me, this is just effective in the very short time, because usually they will get used to this noise device, and after that the noise devices will not effective. And again, the cleanliness, the hygiene is very important. Even there's a noise, just make them not comfortable. If there's a food in that building, they will go in. They will go in because the food is important for them to survive. The noise is just make them not comfortable in that area. And usually they will get used after some time, and that noise device is just become like a not effective at all. Repellent, some people said they're effective, but personally, if you ask me, Haziq, this is not effective in the long run. Maybe in a very short time it will effective, but in the long run, as long as there's a food in that building, as long as there's shelter in the building, as long as there's access to the building, they will stay and they will cause a lot of problem to you. So repellent, if you want to control them in a very short time, may be effective, but in the long run, trust me, it's not even effective. Rodenticide bait, I think this one will discuss in detail by Mark later. We have two types, acute. Most of the rodenticide acute, I think, not available in our market. For example, zinc phosphate. One of my friends from authorities pesticide board, they said they have a plan to ban this zinc phosphate because they are so toxic. And immediate effect, not good. Why? Because this animal, they can develop fat shyness, bed shyness. So we only have anticoagulant rodenticide. This zinc phosphate lead to bed shyness because they can kill immediate. They are high toxic. That's why our authorities try to ban this compound. Haziq. And the second one, the chronic poison. This is a mostly anticoagulant rodenticide. Slow acting. Why slow acting? We need a slow acting to make sure this animal, they cannot learn, they cannot know this is the bait that kill me, this is the poison that kill me. We need this type of animal. And we can class them into first generation and second generation. The first generation is less toxic, is good for your environment, can kill your animal. The second generation is more toxic, 1,000 times toxic than the first generation. If you compare with the warfarin, the old compound, I think you're familiar with that compound. I won't discuss it in detail because we have very short time here. Second generation is very toxic. It's toxic to your animal, to pests, but also to other non-target organisms in your environment, and also toxic to earth. That's the disadvantage of the second generation anticoagulant. For example, we have warfarin, chlorpromazine, or warfarin is an old compound. Now we have a commodity in our market, for example, Racumin. Second generation, for example, bromadiolum, brodifacoum, flacomafon. This is a second generation that's very, very toxic, not just to kill your animal, your target animal, but also it's toxic to our environment. So it's up to the situation, what type of chemical that you want to use. But from the perspective of environment, and also to control your enemy, when you ask us as a scientist, we will recommend a first generation as compared to second generation, because second generation is too toxic. Sangat poisonous. Haziq?
Yes.
Betting. I think I won't go in detail about the betting. You know about the betting. You have to replace and then the distance. But just want to show you here that the betting in our residential area, we cannot bet like what happened in the plantation. In plantation, you can just throw the bed in the open environment, in the plantation. But in the residential area, in the urban area, we have to keep the red bed in the bed station, to make sure there's no expose of the toxic chemical, especially when you use the second generation. There's no expose to environment. House shrew. This is the problem. Some people said house shrew is not a pest, but some people said it's a pest because house shrew is not a rodent basically. But now it's getting important because they said some people, they don't like shrew. Even though when we mentioned that shrew is our beneficial animal, they are not pests because they help us to control other insects, bad insects in our environment, because this is an insectivorous, meaning that they feed on insects. But some people, when they do what we call their own trapping, they produce their own bait. So this animal will come and of course you will kill them, yeah. But yeah, depends. Some clients of PCR, they said this is a pest, but from perspective of the research, this is not a pest, yeah. Well, some people, they said, can I make my own bait? Yeah, you can make your own bait. But remember, when I mentioned that the chemical is a poisonous, yeah, and there's a tendency of other animals to eat your own bait, yeah. So meaning that there's a risk, yeah, there's a risk to the environment, and we are not recommend, yeah. We are not recommend because this is there's a lot of cases, yeah, the poisoning, yeah, happen to the operator, and also when you make your own red bait, yeah, this is something that people tendency will use a acute rodenticide. So meaning that when you use acute rodenticide, basically, let's say if in the first program maybe your control program is effective, but in the second round when this animal they develop a bed shyness, so meaning that the program will not effective. So this is the problem with your own bait. So that's why we recommend a ready wax block bait that just attractive to the rodent, you know, and then to make sure that the target pest is our target, but not the other animal, yeah. Fumigants, I think I won't discuss about this. All of you know about the fumigants, yeah. Only licensed operators should be engaged. This is because we use a very toxic chemicals, you know, against like methyl bromide, very toxic, and we have to make sure only authorized people or a licensed operator engaged to do the fumigation, yeah. Biocontrol, Haziq, ada orang kat situ Oyen, ya. Biocontrol, yeah. Well, maybe in the small scale they're effective, but in the big scale, in the commercial scale, it's not effective. Frankly speaking, even I'm from Ban Owl and Rodent Research Group. We developed to use a Ban Owl as a rodent control implantation. When we try to urbanize Ban Owl to make sure they become a town boy, from the kampung boy in implantation to town boy, but there's a lot of problems because most of the problems of rodents, yeah, happen in the building. So this the predators, yeah, most of the predators in the outside of the building. So biocontrol in the big area or in the commercial scale, well, it's still something that we need to look into, or more research need to be conducted. Yeah? Sustainable rat management, again, yeah, and again, it's not about small population. It's about something that involves a big area. You know, you're involved with the big area because they can travel very, very far. You know, let's say if you have a building and then you share with your neighbor, and you don't have, how to say, a rodent proofing, so there's a possibility of the rodent from the other building to come into your building. So it's not about you control your rats in your building. You have to control in the big area. So it should be involved in the wide area control, or WAC, yeah, and it should be involved with the public, local, you know, the city council, and also involved with the campaign, with the awareness of the people about the importance of the rat control. Of course, the law enforcement. I don't know about this law enforcement, yeah, but if we can, let's say if there's people that, well, they are not breed the rats directly, but they breed pests indirectly from the premises because they're not practice a good hygiene, or they just buat lah, they just buat tak tahu, ya, Haziq, then they breed rats in your area. So I think the law enforcement by the government, I think, is very important. Yeah. The summary, Haziq, you almost 4 o'clock. Yeah.
Yep.
Rats is a collective problem. It's a collective problem. It's not just you control them and finish. It's a something that we have to deal with them for our, you know, in the long run. Yeah. And control must be in a collective way, not just one control program. We need what you call, there's a term that we are very familiar when we are in the degree program, yeah, Haziq, the IPM, the integrated pest management. When we talk about rodent, there's a term of rodent integrated management. Yeah. So meaning that you have to combine a different method. So, and the preventive is better than cure. So meaning that if you can prevent them from happen, I mean the problem, you prevent them to come into your area, it's much better. It's better because when you have a problem with this animal in your area, so you have to employ a lot of resources. And the wide area control, it's not about your room, Haziq, in your office, but it's about the whole building of the behaviour office. Then you have to control the rodent, and also maybe related with the other building that's surrounding the behaviour office. So this is a wide area control when we talk about rodent management. I think I finished with my sharing, Haziq. I think Mark will continue the discussion in detail about the chemical control that I think is very important for us. So I pass the button to you.
Thank you. Right. So, all right. So before that,
I don't know how to stop my.
It's okay. I'll stop my screen. I'll stop your screen. We'll see my screen now. So thank you very much, Dr. Hasber. Very energizing. Very, I would say, I can see your passion in in rodent, especially
because
with this presentation.
When we want to deal with them, with our pest, rodent pest, we have to think like them. That's the keyword. So we have to energetic like rodent.
Again, thank you very much, Dr. Hasber, for this very interesting, insightful presentation, especially with the neophobic features of rats. There's about 6 million of rats in KL. I'm not sure how many in Malaysia, So yeah, so it's a lot. So before we go for the next session, I will launch another 2 polls. I hope you guys can help me to answer these 2 polls, very short one. The first one, want to ask whether have you, used Racumin wax block previously or using it now? Just a simple yes or no. I just want to see, what's the situation from our participant. Right. So I'll give about 30 seconds for the participant to just submit their votes. No worries, no pressure. We don't know who votes and everything. So we just want to see, are there anyone using it or people not using it at all, right? So I give another 10 seconds, right? So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, right. So it's kind of balanced. I think some might not use it, some already use it. So yep, it's good. Right. So I'll share the next poll, the last poll that we have. Very interesting one that maybe we want to hear your feedback. What's the most important features that you think is important for rodenticide? You can select more than one, of course, no risk. Which you think that, is it every everything, or is it just one thing, or is it only 2 of the answer, right? So I give another 30 seconds for everyone to vote, right? So because this is some of the features that we believe is important, that that must be available for a rodenticide in order to achieve a effective management program, right? So maybe I just give another 10 seconds for people to vote, right? So another 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? So share the result. So yeah, I think the result is predictable. Of course, you need a palatable bits. If not, then the rats will not, eat on it. And the safety also is important. And following up with the audit and also the costing, right? So the next speaker that we have for today is Mark. So Mark is the, hold on, sorry. Mark is the our market development manager in covering Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei, responsible for product development, specialized in urban and industrial entomology, right? So Mark also is a USM graduate, same like me. Okay, so without further ado, let me pass the floor to Mark. Mark, I make your as a presentation now. So right,
Yep.
so the floor is yours, Mark.
All right. Thanks, Haziq. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, clearly, yep.
All right. What about my screen? Can you see it properly, or is it?
Yes, not yet
Yes,
full screen.
loud and
All
clear.
right. Yep. Sure. Thanks, Dr. Hasber. All right. So I believe you will probably be seeing a full screen now.
Yes.
Let me just bring up the pointer first. All right. Thanks, Haziq, for the introduction. It's really short and sweet, and really thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. And probably before I start, I just want to congratulate Dr. Hasber. I think his presentation was really well presented and was really interesting. And he's an amazing researcher. And besides being a researcher, personality-wise, he's really a great friend. And again, thank you, Hasber, for your time, especially today. Yeah. So after Dr. Hasber's presentation, today my topic, we're gonna talk a little bit about the solutions that we have for rodent control, for Bayer Environmental Science. So basically, for us in Bayer ES, is that we have two products for chemical control. We have two, which is Racumin Max Block. As I believe that in the poll just now, you have answered the poll whether you have used it or not. The second product that we have that would supplement would complement what we have with Racumin Max Block is our Racumin tracking powder. All right. So the first product that I'm going to talk a little bit about is Racumin Max Block. It's a better solution for sustainable rodent control. All right. So basically, Racumin Max Block, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the packaging first. All right. So in each carton of Racumin Max Block, there is 4 5 kg individual sealed packs, and you do not need to worry about whether there's any insect that will penetrate the sealed pack as well. As well, the sealed pack will also help you to maintain the freshness during storage and transportation as well. And there is a 2 years of shelf life in the Racumin Wax Block product. So you do not need to worry whether when the product is shipped to you, whether it's, you have a short shelf life, but Racumin Wax Block has a 2 years of shelf life, right? So when we always talk about a product, whether it's a rodenticide, whether it's a residue spray product for your GPC, or whether it could be a gel bait, we always talk about the active ingredient. So the active ingredient that Racumin Max Block uses is actually an anticoagulant, which is 0.0375% of coumarin tetralyl, which is a first generation anticoagulant. All right. So if you could see the table here, all right, let's concentrate between coumarin tetralyl and second generation baits. All right. So even though you can see that flucomorphin and brodifaulcum, they are very toxic, but if you look at the LD50 of dogs, birds, and cats, like what Dr. Hasber mentioned, they are from hundreds to 1,000 times more toxic than the first generation anticoagulant. All right. So they may be toxic to rats, very toxic to rats, but they are also harmful to the environment as well. All right. But you see coumarin tetralyl as well. It's, if you compare with the LD50 for dogs, birds, and cats, they are, at least hundreds to 1,000 times less toxic than the second gen baits. All right. But again, when you compare between among the first generation baits, all right, among the first generation active ingredients today in the market, you have like coumarin tetralyl, warfarin, chlorofecinone. All right. You can see that for the LD50, that coumarin tetralyl has a lower LD50 than both these first generation active ingredients. It means that coumarin tetralyl is relatively more toxic than both warfarin and chlorofecinone. So basically, with coumarin tetralyl, you have the best of both worlds. You have a product that is less toxic to non-target mammals and birds, while on the other hand, you also have the best product among the least toxic anticoagulants. So it's best of both worlds. All right. So after talking about the primary poisoning, so what about secondary poisoning? Okay, this is a little bit a brief summary about what secondary poisoning is. So let's say if a rat eat the rodenticide bait and they die from the rodenticide bait, then you have other animals, like let's say for example maybe barn owls or other birds, they come and eat the rats. So maybe there's a possibility that the toxicity in the bait within the rats is not metabolized, the toxicity will then transfer to the second organism, which will result in secondary poisoning. All right. So that is the definition of secondary poisoning. So with Kumar tetraleo, all right, with Racumin wax block, it is actually a multiple feed rodenticide. It is a first generation rodenticide, and it does not pose the same residual risk with a single feed rodenticide, which is a second generation rodenticide. All right, that means it does not pose the same residual risk. So rodents will rapidly metabolize Racumin wax block. Therefore, it poses a much lower risk of secondary non-target poisoning. Okay, so maybe I give you an example of the illustration here. All right, we start with the second gen bait here first. All right, let's say for an owl, for example, for an owl to die from secondary poisoning, it needs to eat 2 rats. For example, not saying that in actual that it is actually 2 rats, but I'm just giving you an example here. They need to eat, let's say the 2 rats which is poisoned by the anticoagulant, maybe they will die when they eat 2 rats that were poisoned. All right. But on the other hand, for a first generation bait or even with Racumin, a barn owl or a bird needs to eat at least 2 to 3 times more poisoned rats. Then only it can receive a lethal dose. That is what we have seen in the second gen anticoagulant. So from this, in order to have a secondary poisoning effect, non-target organisms need to consume many more rats poisoned with Racumin, unlike rats that are poisoned using a second generation anticoagulant. All right. So you have now a product with an active ingredient that has a lower risk to the non-target organisms. But of course, at the end of the day, you still need to apply in a safe manner as well. All right. All right. So another proof of low secondary poison risk is that we have a paper published here, which is where we talk about Kumar tetraleo residues in rats and hazard to barn owls. All right. So there's this species of rat called Rattus demonicus. Now this species is actually is a very a popular pest in the oil palm plantation. All right. So these rats were actually fed with Racumin for a few days and then they died. And then the barn owls actually fed on this Kumar tetraleo poison rats for 6 days in a row. All right. And then after that, the barn owls were monitored subsequently for 30 days. And from this, within this 30 days, and after it as well, there was actually no secondary poisoning systems actually observed in the barn owl. All right. So this is really great results actually to show that there's actually low secondary poison risk in Racumin wax block as well. All right, after talking about the active ingredient, next thing we'll always talk about is the formulation, because it's the formulation that empowers the product to work well as well. All right, it affects how the product works. All right, so Racumin wax block is actually a wax block formulation, and the two things that is one of the two things one of the too many things of the good benefits of Racumin wax block is because it's a wax block formulation, it is both robust and extremely durable as well. All right, so each cube is optimally formulated and wax coated. This is also to ensure there's water resistance for extended storage and optimal field performance, even in the most challenging warm and wet environments. All right, so right now I'm going to show you a study, a weathability study that we've done in an oil palm plantation, where we actually put a few beds right in the open, in an open environment where it's actually, exposed to sunlight, to rain for 4 weeks, and then we see how the bed turns out. All right, and you can see from the pictures here, you have fresh application right here, you have 2 weeks application right here, and you have 4 weeks after application. And you can see that in 4 weeks, there is actually no growth of mold. And you can also see that the color is bluish and it's still maintained originally as what you've seen in the fresh application as well. All right, and this is actually very, very rare among wax blocks that you can find in the market now in Malaysia, where you can actually have extended field performance and extended robust and durability in the field for this period of time as well. All right, so you can see there's 4 weeks of weather resistance for optimal field performance, and of course it may vary with different weather conditions. If it's during the very rainy season, of course it may be a little bit, maybe it'd be 1 week, 1 week less of durability compared to what you see in the 4 weeks here. All right, so we also done another study also. We also want to see whether can the bed, will it melt, for example, because this is a wax block formulation. If you put wax under sunlight or even under heat, the wax itself will melt. All right. At the same time, there are some beds also, if it does not, if it's a not good quality bed, you start to see in a few days that it starts to disintegrate. You try to press it a bit, it'll start to disintegrate the bed. All right. So we did a very small evaluation to determine the durability of Racumin backlog for 4 weeks of continuous exposure to the environment, such as the sunlight, the rain. We want to see 3 things. Does the bed melt? Is there any discoloration? If there's any discoloration, it means the bed is starting to get a little bit moldy and not so fresh, and then the last one, you want to see any disintegration of the bed after long outdoor exposures, like I mentioned earlier. All right. So we did a very simple study. All right. Let me just remove this pointer so that I can. All right. So we did a very simple study. We just put it outside the balcony, exposed to sunlight and exposed to rain. This video showing this raindrops that actually, hitting the beds on the ground here as well. All right. So we want to see, if, let's say if there's a fresh bed, this is how it looks like. All right, this is how 1 week looks like, and this is how 4 weeks looks like. If you see a little bit, the lighting is actually because of the lighting that's not so clear in a 4 weeks one. But you can see the beds is still looking in good shape, in good color, and there's no melting of the bed as well. All right. Of course, I tried to press the bed as well, see whether does it break. You can see that I'm trying to put a lot of force as well in the bed to try to break the bed. All right. But the bed, even after 4 weeks, there is no disintegration of the bed. There's no breakage of the bed at all. All right. So the bed is still retaining its shape and it's still good to be used as well. All right. So there's no melting, no discoloration, and extreme durability of the beds. All right. So at the same time, we want to, what the next thing we want to know is what are the ingredients? Can the ingredients inside the bed, attract the rats? Is it palatable enough? All right. So with Racumin Max Block is a highly attractive and palatable bed matrix with one of the few with a few key ingredients such as corn and rice added into the bed as well. All right. At the same time, there is also an attractive scent to the bed. I'm sure that if for some of you that have used it, you open it, you can smell there's a very nice sweet smelling smell to the bed. All right. So one of the things is that I believe that you've heard what Dr. Hasber had said, that rats actually utilize a lot of their of their smell sensors to actually detect where they are going. All right. So this is one of the things that with the added additional attractive scent, this is also to maximize the bed encounter in the field as well. All right. But of course, this is only applicable to fresh beds, as the scent may only last for a few days. All right. This is just a disclaimer to you first. All right. Okay. So we also want to show right now that it's very, very attractive and also very palatable to the rats. All right. So we pick for us in ES, we pick a very small alley in the urban environment with probably moderate to high populations of Norway rats. And there's various food and water sources available around that particular narrow stretch of the alley. All right. So maybe I can show you a little bit of the picture. Once you walk towards the alley, you can actually see some rats moving around. Okay, you can start. All right, if the video is not so, all right, you can see some rats moving around here. You can see, and then of that, some rats here coming up. Very brave of them to come out with me standing around here, and you can see some of the rats just running around here. You can see that's probably a sign that you can see also some of the shadows here. The rats are moving. All right, and then later you see another rat shadows is passing by right in front of me as well. All right, so so this is a sign of a very high population of rats right here. All right, and this environment itself, there's also various food and water sources available. People throw rubbish around. It's close to a restaurant, and it's tons of food and water sources available for the rats. So definitely, we would definitely expect the competition between beds and other food sources will be very high. Okay, so what we did is that we broadcast Racumin Max Block around a little bit, and we also place some Racumin Max Block in the station as well. All right, so in total we have 25 beds placed. Right, so we did the treatment around at 7:30 p.m. All right, so we after 3 hours of application, so we came back at 10:30, and we found out that 28% of the beds have already been consumed. Right, so how do we know in the broadcast area that it's actually rats or Norway rats that ate the bed? All right, so you can see that we can see some of the residues of the gnawing, the results of the rats gnawing to the bed. You can see some of the residues. Sometimes these are the residues left over by the rats, and that is a good sign that it's rats that are eating the baits, all right? So what about 12 hours later? The whole night, you just leave it one night later, all right? So one night later, we found that at 7:30 a.m. we went and checked, 96% of the baits were already consumed. And of course, we opened the bait station and we found lots of residue left over, all right? I mean, slightly of the small bits and tiny residue left over, sorry, I mean. All right, so again, from the conclusion of the study, we can say that Racumin Max Block is both attractive and palatable, even under strong competition and pressure with various food and water sources around. All right. At the same time, like what Dr. Hasber mentioned, that of course with baits, when you put it in a new environment, there is always a risk that neophobia will strike in. Sorry for that. So, but again, we saw that after placing the baits and even in after 12 hours, we already found 96% of the baits already consumed. All right. So that is one of the wonderful things about Racumin Max Block, the attractiveness and the palatability of it. All right. So the next thing is, what about performance of it, against the rats? Performance as in the efficacy, the mortality, how many days for the rats to die. All right. So we did a lab trial together with the Barnau research group, with Dr. Hasber as well. We wanted to compare the comparison between first generation baits first, right? Let's just put first generation baits first. Let's not talk about second gen baits first. All right. So first generation baits first, we did a non-choice study. What we did is that we fed rats with new bait every day for 6 days, and then we observe the mortality, or we observe the behavior for the next 20 days. So we every day, every single day, we will replace the bait and feed it with new bait for 6 days, and then we check the mortality after the 6 days. All right. So what did we find? Among the first gen baits, we found that Racumin Max Block produce the higher mortality rate among the other first gen baits of chlorphenenon and warfarin. All right. So RWB is short for Racumin Max Block. Right. So this is the mortality percentage. Okay. So as you can see, mortality first generation comparison RWB is much more superior than the other two actives. All right. So what about the daily bait consumption? All right. Every day, because we replace the bait, new baits comes in. How much does it actually consume? Okay, as you can see, among the three actives, Racumin Max Block is only 3.6 gram, while the rest is more than 5 gram. And at the same time, Racumin Max Block still delivered the lethal effect with a daily mean of less than 4 gram consumption, which is very, very good. All right. You get less bait consumption, but you still get a very high mortality rate. All right. But what about days of death? Okay, as you can see, the days of death, you can see that Racumin Max Block took an average of 5.7 days for the rats to die. All right. And then later chlorphenenon 6 days, and then warfarin 7 days. All right. So in terms of days of death, slightly faster days of death for Racumin Max Block. All right. You can see some of the pictures of Rattus tumenicus dying. All right. Although this study, okay, maybe just to let you know, although this study is on Rattus tumenicus, but the baits AI you see here are the AIs that and also the formulations that are widely used in the market in PCOs today as well. All right. What about second generation baits? And maybe to add on one more group, calciferol baits as well. So it's first gen Racumin Max Block and second gen and calciferol baits as well. Similar study, non-choice study, fed the rats every day with new baits for the past 6 days, and then we monitor the mortality for the next 20 days. All right. What we found is that in terms of the mortality, we found that Racumin Max Block showed equal performance with the second generation bait, even though we know that the second gen bait of flucomorphin is much more toxic than Racumin Max Block. But we see that in terms of the mortality performance, there was almost equal performance between the two different actives or the two different formulations that you see here. All right. But what about cholecalciferol? It's exactly half, only less than half of both Racumin Max Block and flucomorphin. So we can only see cholecalciferol at around 40% mortality only. All right. So what about daily bait consumption? Mean daily bait consumption. You can see that Racumin Max Block was very consistent as the previous study, around 3 gram daily. All right. Flucomorphin around 4 gram, and cholecalciferol around only 2 gram. All right. So what about days to death? Okay, this is going to be very interesting. All right. As you can see, days to death, Racumin Max Block and flucomorphin took exactly almost the same number of days for the rats to die. All right. But of course, you can see cholecalciferol it takes around 9 days on average. All right. But Because if you see this result, days to death, 6 days for RWB and 6 days for fluclomuffin, there's always a misconception that second generation baits are always faster than first generation baits. All right, it's not the case. If you have sufficient amount of baits of first gen around for the rats to eat, the number of days of death, the speed of kill is exactly the same between a first generation and a second generation. All right, so RWB is on par with second generation bait in the days of death as well. All right, so proven that second generation bait is not always faster. All right, so we also did a non-choice study as well, just a very simple non-choice study with together with Dr. Hasber on Rattus novagicus as well. We also wanted to know whether different rat species, Rattus pneumaticus and Rattus novagicus, would it also differ in a number of days of death as well. So we put rats in the pen, we put bait stations as well. Want to see whether does the rats eat the baits. And of course, we saw that the results revealed almost similar as what we've seen in the previous study with Rattus pneumaticus, is that Rattus novagicus as well also take an average 5 to 6 days for the rats for the number of days of death for the rats as well. All right, so not much difference between Rattus novagicus and also Rattus pneumaticus in the study. All right, so what are the other features as well that what are the simple features that we can also find in Racumin Max block? All right, so the blue coloring on Racumin Max block serves as also as a warning dye, as that when people see it, they know that when for a blue in color product, that this is actually not safe, or is not it's not something that you can consume. All right, so this is the reason why we put a blue coloring on our product. All right, so at the same time, Racumin Max block also contains Bitrax, a bittering agent in which the concentration is not detectable by rats, but it's actually a human taste deterrent as a safeguarding for if in any case there is an accidental ingestion by humans. All right, so how do you apply Racumin Max block? Basically, you place 5 to 10 bits in each station or in rat burrows. For severe infestations, use the highest number, which is 10 bits per station. Of course, inspect the bait points 1 or 2 days after the first bait placements. Refill the stations with bait again until the consumptions of rats stop. All right, we know that rats, like what Dr. Hasber mentioned, is a creature of habit. They always go back to the same place to find a food source. So again, another alternative is that you come back. I mean, 1 or 2 days may be too long, or maybe too fast for you. You can probably extend to, like what Dr. Hasber mentioned, 4 to 7 days. Come back to monitor, refill until you see the consumption that is dropping or stop, and then you can go back to your monitoring practices. All right, so where do you place the bait stations? The bait stations can place near the rat burrows, near the rat track, around the perimeter of the building, for example, or any areas identified as affected rat activities such as footprint, stools, and urine as well. All right, so what is a summary of 4 reasons to love Racumin Max block? Racumin Max block is both robust and extremely durable. With a wax-coated formulation, RWB is both water and weather resistant for an optimal field performance. It is also a multiple feed rodenticide, whereby it has a lower risk of primary and secondary poisoning in non-target animals. Racumin Max block also has a highly attractive and palatable bait matrix, proven to be accepted by rats despite high food and water source competition. And RWB, or Racumin Max block, does not compromise on its performance, proven with better performance versus first gen and calcifero baits, and on par performance versus a second generation bait. All right, so that is all for Racumin Max block. And of course, the next one we have is Racumin tracking powder, ready to use powder formulation. All right, this will be very short. All right, so Racumin tracking powder is a concentrated, ready to use powder formulation which contains a first generation anticoagulant active ingredient for rodent control. It contains coumatetralyl, 0.75%. All right, basically the whole idea of this product is actually to help to overcome bait shyness. All right, before that, I explain how the concept works. How do you actually apply Racumin tracking powder? All right, so these are the example of rodent burrows. All right, so what you need to do is you need to take 20 grams of Racumin tracking powder and broadcast it into the rat burrow. Okay, so why broadcast it to the rat burrow is because Racumin tracking powder actually takes advantage of rodent behavior. Okay, often rats will self-groom themselves as a function of cleaning. How do they groom? They lick themselves, then they scratch themselves, and then they wash their face themselves, and then they lick themselves again. All right, so they lick themselves again. So okay, With Racumin tracking powder, we take advantage of the rat's hygiene behavior. That when the rat passes through the burrow lined with Racumin tracking powder, powder will stick on its fur. And then itself, when they clean themselves, rats will then ingest the little dose of the tracking powder. So basically what tracking powder does is that it helps to overcome, if there is in any case, there is bait shyness, this might work very well against especially to Norway rats when they are in, when you can find the burrows around, all right? So again, that's all for my presentation. Hope that everybody enjoyed the time, and feel free to email me if you have any questions that you do not want to ask in the Q&A. Thank you. All right, Haziq, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Mark, for this product presentation. Very fruitful and a lot of information about our products. So thank you again. And right now we have our Q&A session, and we have a lot of questions actually. Right. So let me bring the question from one to one. So we try to see if we can finish the question today. We do, but if we can't, then you can email me any of your so-called questions, and we will answer you by email. And for those who are wondering, is there any recording session? Yes, we did. There is a recording session for you to view after this session, right? So let me go to the first question. All right. So first question is Dr. Hasber, right? So it's quite broad question, Dr. Hasber. So they were asking, is there any approach to control rodent in the floor mill or flip mill? In this kind of environment, what strategy that you advise?
Pardon, what is the question? Because I cannot hear you. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me now,
Hello?
Doctor?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Okay. So
What is the question?
the question is how to control rodent population in the environment for for example flour mill or feed mill. In this environment there's a lot of grains, there's a lot of wheat, so the food competition will be very high, right?
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting question basically, because in the flour mill the competitions of the food is very high, because food is everywhere. So if you put a rodenticide, so there's a competition between the alternative food with the rodenticide. But like I mentioned by Mark just now, because Mark did something very interesting study. In the baseline of the building, there's a lot of food, but with the applications of the Racumin, he managed to the consumption. I think Mark almost 90%, right? After 24 hours.
Yeah, 90%. Yeah, after 12 hours.
So meaning that we need something that very palatable, the palatable bait, maybe that available in the market to make sure we maximize the consumptions of the poisons to kill our pests. But at the same time, there's also safety issue, because this is a food area. So basically, in the food area, rodenticide application, especially the second generation, is not recommended if you ask me, because it's too toxic, like mentioned by Mark just now. And also there's a possibility of the contamination, because the behavior of the rats, when they found a food, especially a rat bait, they will try to grab it and bring to their nest. So, and also one of the behavior, like mentioned by the Mark just now, they love licking, when they're grooming themselves. So there's a possibility of the contaminations of the chemical to the flower. But again, because when we deal with rats, we cannot how to say concentrated to one method, because it's so difficult to control them. Because for sure there's a population that like Mark mentioned just now, maybe there's no signs of neophobia, but there's no how to say we don't know the real populations of the rat in that place. Maybe there's a neophobia, but because of the very attractive of the Racumin, they macam dia tak peduli lah neophobia tu. Dia kata, I don't care lah, because the food, the bread is super delicious, so they don't care about the neophobia. But yeah, the point here is you have to use, if let's say if you need a chemical control, you have to choose the right rat bait that's highly palatable, and then of course it's effective. And if there's issue of the safety or contamination, you need to employ maybe other methods, maybe like we mentioned just now in the presentation, like snap trap or trapping, or maybe you do hunting, because some people, they said, especially in US and UK, they have a lot of problem with the resistance of populations of rats, and also they develop a sort of trap shyness very high, so they have a very difficult to control a rat population in the warehouse. So they do a hunting. They do hunting by with a special gun, and also with the dog, you know, a very special trained dog. That I don't know about the breed of the dog, but it's so small, but they are very, very energetic, and they will release in the warehouse, and this dog, they will catch and try to go to the nest of the rats and try to disperse or to eat the rats. So this is the strategy. So again, you cannot concentrate on one method. We need to more creative, you know, because different problem, different area, they have a different solution. Meaning that it's a site-specific recommendation. I cannot recommend at the moment, you know, because it's a general question. But let's say if you have a problem, somebody expert in the rodent management needs to visit the area, then they will do a recommendation according to the requirement of the place.
Thank you, Doctor. Right, so it's the management strategy. Okay, the next question is, I think both of you can answer. So they're asking about shrew. So any advice for, you know, shrew control? What kind of strategy that, you know, can be used for shrew control?
Mark, you want to answer the question?
Well, I mean, we first have to understand that shrew, they're not like rats. You know, if you try to offer rodent baits, I don't think they will eat it. I mean, as of now, the best will be, you know, using glue traps or snap traps. That's the only thing, you know. I mean, we know that shrews like a little bit of oily food. You can probably put it as a bait on top of the glue trap. That's the thing that, you know, we I mean, that I could think of as of now, you know. I mean, again, this is something very new, like what Dr. Hasber mentioned, you know, and definitely rodent baits does not work because it's totally out of what their whole biology is. They do not even eat it. All right, but again, you know that they may like a little bit of oily food, and you can mix it a little bit pre-mixed and put it in on the bait on the glue trap, and, you know, just put it where you think the tracks is, or where you last seen them, and, you know, this would probably be a good option right now as of what I could think of. Yeah, maybe Dr. Hasber, you have something else that in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mark. Because some people said this is a pest because of the expectation from the clients. But again, I don't know, but because this house shrew is just a recent problem. Previously, house shrew is just the animal that we don't care basically. But I don't know, especially in Penang, the population is getting high, and there's a lot of complaint from the residents. Yeah? But again, we have something like pro and con when we talk about the shrew, because shrew is a beneficial animal. It's not a rodent basically, but because they have to control, because main diet of this shrew is an insect. Yeah? So almost 70 to 80% of their diet is insect. But because of just people simply not like them because of their presence looks like a rat, and because of the color is gray, like looks like a musculus, and also because of their snout, and also because they produce something like a very bad smell. Because in Malay we call it house shrew is a Ticus casturi. Even see the Malay name is a Ticus casturi, even though they are not ticus. But there's a interpretations and miscommunication. The people, they thought this is a rat, then they want to control. But well, again, because some PCO, they said this is an expectation from the client, they have to control. But when you ask about the control, basically, you like Mark just now mentioned, you can use a glue trap, and then maybe you can put some oily food in the middle of the glue trap, and they will manage to trap very easy lah. This is a Ticus bodo. I think in Penang they call it Ticus bodo because they are very easy to catch if you compare with rodent, because rodent they're very sophisticated. But this ticus bodo is not a ticus. Yeah? Even at the first place, they are not ticus. They are ticus bodo. The people here call ticus bodo. Very easy to trap. But again, as a scientist, I'm not encourage you to kill all of them. It's good to control, lipas,
Yeah,
semut, yeah.
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 Good biological control.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Thank
biological
you.
control basically. Yeah.
All right. So next question, Dr. Hasber, is musculus. I think the house mice. Is this species dominant in Malaysia? And how many percent that we estimate them in Malaysia? And the second question follow up is how much water that can rats drinks in a day? Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. Regarding the mus musculus, if you talk about Malaysia in 60s and 70s, yeah. During that time, mainly we deal with mus musculus, yeah, in early 70s. But it started in 80s, 90s. This mus musculus getting lesser and lesser because of the aggressive rat, which is a roof rat. They take over the place of the mus musculus. Roughly, we did some study of mus musculus population in Penang. Roughly, the population is less than 5%, because most of the residential area in the building dominated by roof rat, and the outside of the building, the major is a Norway rat. And mus musculus is very difficult. Out of 100 traps, we just managed to get maybe 1 or 2. So from that figures, we try to estimate the population. Roughly, the population is less than 5% in Penang.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Okay.
If the figure in Penang is 5%, I think similar happened to Kuala Lumpur and other cities in Malaysia.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
regarding the amount of water, right, that
Yep.
consumed by the mus musculus, basically mus musculus, they will produce about 3 ml, excrete 3 ml of urine. So in and out of the liquid from their body almost same. So if they excrete about 3 ml from their body, they will consume about 3 ml. So the consumption of the water about 3 ml per day, yeah, not per month, per day. So a lot of water.
Is it the same for roof rats and Norway rats also?
Norway rats, because of the body, so they'll need more, almost double.
Need more.
So about 5
Okay.
ml, if I'm not mistaken, about 5 to 6 ml. Same in and out the liquid from their body. But mus musculus will produce more droppings. They can produce up to 100 droppings per day. If you compare with Norway and also roof rat, we just produce about 20 to 50 droppings. Because the dropping of the Norway and roof rat big, right? About 2 cm, the size. If you compare with just 6 millimeter of the mus musculus, so the number is much higher if you compare with Norway.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. The next question from one of our friends, Hans, is saying that is there any possibility for the ecotourism resort using barn owl to control rodents?
Well, thank you, Mr. Hans. I know about Mr. Hans. So very active in the pest control industry. Well, if you deal with rats that active in the open environment, there's a possibility of the barn owl to be effective biocontrol, because we cannot ask barn owl to hunting in the building, because this is a bird that you cannot keep them as a pet. This is a protected species.
Yeah.
So there's a possibility. But we need to identify what actually the rat species that present in the place. Yeah. So let's say if the species is maybe from the surrounding area, maybe from the blue car area, from the plantation area. Let's say if you have Rattus aegyptiventer or Rattus thiamanicus or Rattus diadai, then you can employ barn owl to be a effective biocontrol for that place. But let's say we deal with the mus musculus in that place. So we know that mus musculus is indoor rat. So for sure there's no chance of the barn owl to hunt the mus musculus that in the place. Yeah? Yes, there's a possibility. Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. Next question, I think to Mark. Because of the palatability of Racumin wax block, it seems like it attracts snails and ants, which create another pest issue. When we want to kill rats, but it attracts snail
I
and
see.
ants. So,
Yep.
is there any way to to reduce this situation?
Well, uh, if you're really scared, that snails will come and eat your beds because you're putting the beds bare just like that. Alternative is you can put it in a very thin Ziploc bag and poke some holes in it just to let the rats to be able to smell through it. That's another alternative because we know that snails, they once they see something like Racumin explode with a bear like this, and then they will definitely go on top of it and they will eat it. But right now is that if you have a plastic over it, they would not be able to go on top of it or eat it or anything. So, but it's still good enough for the rats because when you poke the holes in there, you still be able to let the rats smell through what's inside the 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 Ziploc
Plastic.
bag. That's for
Okay.
that's the plastic of Ziploc bag. That's one thing that right now I could think of. Yeah, I hope it answers the question. That's an alternative.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. So, next question for Dr. Hasber. One of the question asked is there any way that we set a threshold limit of red activity when we install a red bed station? For example, if we install, let's say, 50, is how to measure the, red activity in terms of the limits that, acceptable and everything. Yep.
Well, in urban areas, especially in a premise, a very sensitive premise, let's say in a food factory or maybe in your house, we not set a threshold level like what happened in the plantation. In the plantation, because this is not our residential area, it's just a plantation, right?
Yep.
Because you want to protect
Correct.
your crop, so we set a threshold level. Because that's why when you have a problem in the plantation, we set at 5%, and you'll apply your what you call your bed in the open environment. So there is the limit, the 5%. But in residential area, I think so far there's nobody tried to set the threshold level of rat infestation in urban area
Agreed.
because
Agreed.
because rat,
Agreed.
like
Yeah.
we discussed just now,
Yeah.
the reproduction is
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
3 months,
Yeah.
they have
Yeah.
thousands of
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree with
So
you on that as well. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but in plantation, because it's just a plantation, because we cannot
Yeah.
simply put toxic
Yeah.
chemical to our
Yeah.
open environment because the
Yeah.
application in an open space. So that's why
Yeah.
scientists try to set up what you call a threshold level, 5% of
Correct.
damage of the
Correct.
crops.
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
urban area,
Yeah. It's
I
not.
think so far, I don't know
Yeah.
if Mark, you have idea on that.
I can give the experience that I had before is that I agree with what you mentioned as well. What we've learned so far all the way from uni until today. In the urban environment, you can never set such a value or a number because we are living in such a heterogeneous environment. That's definitely it. It's so difficult to census a population, unless you place your traps very strategically, which I doubt there is, it's possible. But again, what we know is that there's always the communication with the customers. At what point does the rat population actually affect your customer's business? That could be one of the simple indication. You know, if you know that out of 50 stations and two or three, eat the beds, but still the two or three, two or three stations got the beds eaten, but still you still have rats eating still entering the building and affecting your customers' products. It's so difficult to put a threshold on that, and so I wouldn't recommend putting a number to it, but it's more of
Yep.
the constant communication with your customer and what does the customer feel their limit. Of course, definitely, whenever their business is affected, that's the crucial part, of that you need to start to control. Yeah.
Okay. Can. Right. So next question, I think to Mark is, if let's say the bed consumption has dropped to zero, meaning the rats no longer eat the
Yep.
beds, are you suggesting to replace the bed regularly as preventive? And the second question follow up is, how many RWB needed to to feed one rats to achieve the mortality? Yep.
Okay. Yeah. definitely.
Yep.
That's a very good question. Maybe to answer the first question, where let's say if the consumption is already down to 0, then you can go back to your service. Let's say you are servicing maybe every month, for example, the bare minimum every month. Okay, but you know that there's a rat infestation, you start off very early and you come back maybe every 4 to 7 days to come and replace the beds. You start to notice that the beds, you start to notice the consumption is reduced. Of course, the first thing first is if you can see a dead rat body around, then that's wonderful, you know. I mean, of course, the next thing is also to see whether does it also affect your customer's business. All right. I mean, whether do you see is there any more damage or any more rodent droppings or any more signs that the rats are already there, so still there. So of course, once you check after the consumption, you check all the other matters like whether the damage are still there, whether whether there is more, whether are there any more rodent droppings, or are there any more smell of urine or anything, all these different signs. If you still don't see any more, then there's a possibility that the rat infestation is already dropped. All right. So
Okay.
on the reoccurrence on applying it again, then you can go back to your monthly schedule. That's fine. You know, monthly schedule. You know, as you can see, the beds can last for 4 weeks in an open field condition. So if you put it in a bed station and what more without the contact of sun, or of course without the disturbance of moisture, it can definitely last longer than that. But of course, this is based on your service frequency as well. All right. I didn't get the
Yep.
second question. What was the second question again?
The
Yeah,
second
sorry.
question is how much the rats need to eat in order to achieve the little dose to die
Well,
lah
this is
in a way.
this is a very interesting question. Yeah, I mean, it's maybe I think Hasber will definitely I need his help for this. I mean, he's more experienced in this field. But I think if you, I mean, as long as you know that, I mean, you can always use the lethal dose as a benchmark. Okay, if you know that an average rat weight is, you know, maybe 250, 300 gram. Am I getting it right, Dr. Hasber?
Mhm.
Right. So then from there you can measure back the mg per kg based on the weight for the LD50, and then you know exactly that's the number that actually that number kills 50% of the population. You can actually mathematically cross back the LD50. Okay, of course I don't have the calculation now with me, but you can feel free to email me. We can talk privately and I can do the calculation for you, and you know, you can get the number. All right. So again, I mean, definitely when it comes to first generation beds or you know, is definitely gonna, as long as you have enough beds in the field, you know, then you know, i- the rodent side will work definitely. So yep, maybe Dr. Hasber, you have
Okay.
something to add on. You can add on if you have anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when the manufacturer try to formulate a bait, basically one bait they can kill one rat, but because this is anticoagulant, so meaning that we need a multiple intake, so meaning that the rats need to eat by stage, you know, not just jumpa bait tu terus makan macam tu. So
Yep.
that's why we apply when you apply bait in a bait station, we have to put multiple red bait to make sure there's a a multiple feed of the rats,
Yep.
because
Yep.
we need the multiple feed to make sure the anticoagulant mechanism in the body happens, so that eventually will kill the animals.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And
theoretically,
yeah.
one bait can kill one rat. But
Yeah.
practically, because rat need to consume multiple stage, so
Yeah.
we need to
Yeah.
put more than one
Yeah.
bait. Yeah.
And you need to also consider the fact that, you know, different anticoagulants have different metabolism. The effect. I mean, different rats have different rates of metabolism on different anticoagulants and different active ingredients. So in order to make sure that the rats have enough dose. I mean, because it's slow acting, to have enough dose to last all the way to the end, you definitely need to have multiple baits on the field to make sure that if you know there is enough for it to replenish until the later dosage. Yeah, definitely. But of course, if you want to know specifically the number, there is always the LD50 to cross back and calculate, and you get the number. Yeah. All right.
Haziq, a
Okay.
simple metaphor. If you contoh kita ada tikus ya, kita bagi makan
Yes.
semua sebiji tu dia takkan mati. But if you feed slowly, sikit macam tu dia akan mati. because
Yep.
there's the mechanism of anticoagulant rodenticide. We have the animal need to feed the bait by multiple feeding.
Agreed.
Multiple feeding.
Agreed. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of time, and we are almost reaching 5 o'clock, right? So I don't want to track the time for all the participants. So again, I would like to express my gratitude to all the speakers today, especially Dr. Hasber and also Mark, for sharing your very informative and fruitful, I'll say, presentation. And I believe our participant today learn a lot of new knowledge by our sharing session today. And yep, I don't want to drag the time because we promised we will end at 5 o'clock. So again, I'll say thank you for all the participants that join us today. We will have a short survey after we close the session, and we hope that you can answer that short survey for our future improvement. All right. So without further ado, I would say not far from berbuka puasa. So selamat berbuka puasa to every one of us. All right, and we wish you I would say good health, and we thank you for your participation today. So again, thank you very much, and bye for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.